What led you to become a lawyer?
The part of law that I really love is oral argument, and then the writing, the drafting, the briefing.
Why is that?
Because there's a lot of beauty in language, and when you're using language to reach an objective, it can be a very challenging, and when it's done right, a very satisfying thing.
Was there any particular case that led you here to the International Criminal Court?
I think the cases that prepared me, probably put me on a trajectory to come here, were cases that I worked on in the Bronx and in Chinatown that were organized crime cases against violent gangs. And a lot of the worst crimes being committed in the world today in places other than the United States really have characteristics that are like, it's like gang-like behavior. It's just completely, you call it organized crime, but really what you mean is it's disorganized and mayhem. The leaders in these big conflicts never believe that they will ever be brought to justice. Okay? They operate in places where the idea of going to jail is like, I might go to jail. That's a joke.
When you first came to the court, is it what you thought it would be?
I think people do feel the anxiety at some level. People are very committed, but the responsibility of carrying on the stream that people had for a court like this does weigh on your shoulders heavily at different times, different moments.
What's the war about in Uganda?
What war in this time and age goes on for 20 years? And I think really the only answer is, there's evil at work. There really is. When people set out to hurt each other, the fact that you're in the 21st century doesn't help you a lot, or doesn't necessarily help you a lot.
The arrest warrants that the International Criminal Court has handed down, is that having an effect on the conflict in Uganda?
So many of the people that we interviewed have never spoken to anybody about being abducted by the LRA and the years that they sometimes spend in the LRA. And just the idea that they're being allowed to describe their victimization and that somebody's listening to them, somebody whom they consider to be somebody who might be able to do something about it, is an extraordinary thing for the people who live there.
How do you explain to your friends and relatives what the International Criminal Court is, and do they seem to understand?
People love to think hierarchically. So when you tell people it's an international criminal court, they automatically think, oh, you're at the top. Your job is to be the king court of all courts. You're the king global permanent court. And in fact, that's untrue. We're more like a court at the bottom that catches the cases that fall through because other states or countries are unwilling or unable to do them themselves.
What do you hope that the court will become?
We will exist forever. And so the question is, in what way do we muscle into the current dynamic and then create a different dynamic where people think about lasting accountability? And that's not an easy thing to accomplish, but I think it's very hopeful that there is one small entity based in The Hague that does nothing but think about that question and does nothing but pressure and cajole and nag other people to think about that question. And hopefully by doing that, we can create even more consensus around the idea that the problem of impunity and of bringing accountability really needs to be tackled, at least for the most serious crimes that exist.